Hello, and welcome to Part 1, The Basics of Job Control, presented by howtolaser.com. In this part, we'll cover 5 main topics: connecting to the laser, the job queue, the calculations panel, the material database, and the printer driver. Firstly, let's talk about how to connect Job Control to the laser. It's done by clicking the Connect button, which is located in the bottom right-hand corner, just here. Providing the machine is turned on and initialized, the Connect button will simply establish a connection to the laser. Which brings me on to the next topic, the job queue. When a job is printed to Job Control, it'll show up here in this list, the job queue. By having the job preview box ticked, we can view each of the jobs in this list by clicking them. I can also position this job on my plate by dragging and dropping. The plate refers to this white square that we see here. This is the size of your laser bed. It is the maximum size you can engrave on. Now, by scrolling in using your mouse, you can view your job. If your job does not look like this, it is probably because you don't have the "What you see is what you get" button selected. You will typically see something like this, a grey box. Well, if I want to view my job before I print it, I can click the "What you see is what you get" button, and it will give me a view of each of the colors and each of the features of my job. Talking about colors, by clicking on your job, you can see over to the left-hand side the calculations panel. In my job, I have both black and red selected. So, in the calculation panel, it'll give me separate timings for each of the colors. As you can see here, using the slow engraving speed, we are taking 1 minute and 17 seconds to engrave these words, as well as 55 seconds to cut this intricate design. This design is cut at 0.6% speed of the laser. That means the laser can move at 100%, but we are only using 0.6% of the total speed. So that correlates to 55 seconds. If we move to a material that we can cut faster, such as balsa wood, we can see that it increases to 2% speed and results in a 29-second engraving or cutting time. If your timing comes up with a star next to it, it's because you need to click the update button. By pressing the update, it performs a calculation and gives you an updated timing. So, we've talked about this velocity and power and the different colors, but where can I access these different values? Well, if you double click in any of this white space here, it'll bring up your materials database. This is a database which consists of different material groups, and within those groups, different materials. So as you can see, under wood, we have balsa, birch, cedar, cork, maple, etc., etc. And each of these materials have different values. So as you can see, these power and speed settings for each of these materials are changing as I scroll through. If I find that this material isn't cutting all the way through or isn't giving me the best results possible, I can tweak this value, for example the power, down to 74%. And by clicking enter, it saves that value that I've just typed. Of course, I can change the speed and a few other settings that we won't get into in this video. This material database is important as it holds all your materials and all your different settings. So, ensuring this, we should click on the Options button and press Export All. You should save a copy of your material database on a server or USB stick or somewhere safe that it will not get disrupted in case you make a mistake and you've lost your settings. So, with that all out of the way, how do I print a job to JobControl? I want a new job in my job queue. Well, if we open a file editor such as CorelDRAW, we can see here this is a job that I prepared earlier. I want to take this job now and send it over to JobControl. So, the way I do that is after I finish editing the file, I click on File, Print. And we can see that there's a preview here to the right. If you don't see this preview, it's because you need to click this button next to the Print Preview button, the little arrow. This will bring up your print preview. Next, we want to make sure that the printer is selected as Trotec Engraver. You might accidentally have another printer selected. If that is the case, just click on this drop-down menu and click Trotec Engraver. The next thing we will do, still in this panel, is pressing the Preferences button just over to the right. This will bring up our printer driver. Now, we have a few different options here, but the main one that we'll start off with is the width and height. You can manually set your width and height of your job, which you can see will correspond to the width and height in CorelDRAW. So in this case, it's 70 by 35. I can manually type that in here, or I can have this set to the maximum size of my laser bed, in this case 1000 millimeters by 610 millimeters, and have the minimize to job size selection clicked. This will bring down the width and height to match the size of your document, so you don't have to manually type it in here every time. Next is our material database, our material settings. By clicking this button on the left, you can see it brings up our material database that we just spoke about. Alternatively, you can select your material here, in this case plastic, and your actual material that you have here, so acrylic. You have some other settings that we won't get into on this episode, but what we would like is enhanced geometries turned on and quick print and auto position selected off. By clicking the JobControl button here, these will now become our default setting. So let's click. We can see now there is no issues to be seen. By clicking OK, the job will now become a printed job. As you can see in the bottom right, there's one document pending. Once the document has finished printing, it will show up in your list here. If you don't see the job in this list, it is because you are printing with a different resolution or different setting. So if this happens, by clicking the Show All button just below the print queue, will now show all the different jobs here. So as you can see, there is my job. You can view it as a job preview. So we can select this and bring it over onto our plate. If we zoom in, we will see that only one box has shown up. Well, I have 3 different colored boxes here. Why is that so? Well, in our material database, if we double click under acrylic cast, which is what we selected before, we can see that there's only 2 colors that have been set, an engrave or cut option. We also have a blue box in our design. So we will change blue to cut. And by pressing OK, we can now see that this is available. Again, we will do the same for the green color. By selecting cut, it will now show up in our job. This way we can have a job and selectively skip or change the values for each of these colors. So for example, if I didn't want to engrave or cut this green box for any reason, I can click on this color and press skip. And now, in my job, this colored box will disappear. This has been a howtolaser.com tutorial on how to use JobControl. Thank you. Goodbye.